Hello, stream.
Hello, stream.
There's a Megan in the background.
The rare and extinct Megan finds her habitat in the Peruvian jungle.
That's my office, the Peruvian jungle. Onward to Chapter 16. Hey, what's up, Mythor? Long time no see. Chapter 16. The dream took her. Lauren was in the sewers and the man was there. The one whose hair was cropped close, who dressed in black leather, who had scars along his arms. His eyes still glowed with that strange light, akin to mage light and yet somehow different. He leaned against the passage wall. Yeah, exactly. Glad you could make it. He leaned against the passage wall and put a finger to his lips, though Lauren had spoken no word. She spun, looking around. They were in Danfon's sewers, but she could not place their exact location. Then she thought she heard a noise, a great deal of running water. The river. They must be near the place where Weil had first led them into the sewers. She turned back to the man with the scars. He still held a finger to his lips, but now he lowered it and stepped around the corner. Though she had not willed her body to move, Lauren found herself following him. Hey, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Meg's working in here today. No classes on Fridays. I will make sure to try and stream on Fridays then. She stepped around the corner and almost bumped into his back. The man motioned her to silence and then stepped aside for her to see. There were Damaris and Gregor just a little way down the tunnel, but there too was a woman Lauren did not recognize. She had the look of a Dortian woman, and she sat in a chair facing Lauren. Damaris and Gregor faced her away from Lauren. Then Lauren realized the woman was bound and unable to move. For the moment, Damaris and Gregor seemed content to ignore their prisoner. Gregor strode up and down the sewer, studying its walls, its ceiling. This is how Lauren entered the city, he said. I know that she and her party came this way, but my agents could not discover her whereabouts above ground. That is no matter, said Damaris. Maintain a guard so that they cannot escape the same way, but I do not think she will try to flee. I think she came here seeking us. If that is true, then it is only a matter of time before she reveals herself, and that is when we may strike. Lauren's knees shook. Damaris knew she was in the city. Of course she would know eventually. Lauren meant to reveal herself to the whole populace the next day, but how had she found out in advance, or was this a vision of the future? Her terror increased tenfold as Damaris turned to look into her eyes. Hello, Lauren, she said softly. This is a dream, said Lauren. How did she know that? She'd never realized it before, not while she was in the dream at least. Or had she? Her mind was muddled. Damaris did not acknowledge Lauren's statement. She only came forwards, walking up until she stood less than a pace in front of Lauren. Gregor did not follow, though Lauren could almost feel the bodyguard grow tense. Thank you, said Damaris, for bringing Annis to Danfon. Lauren wanted to flee, but she could not move. She is not here. You have been misled. The merchant smiled. It was a sad, lonely expression, but her eyes were warm. She stepped forwards. Lauren tried to jerk away, but she still could not move. Damaris embraced her, arms wrapping around her back to rest on her shoulder blades. She laid her head on Lauren's shoulder, face turned away, and squeezed her tight, not to harm, but only to give comfort. Lauren had almost forgotten that the merchant was nearly a hand shorter than her. You have taken such good care of her, said Damaris softly. I know now that if she had joined me in the Great Rocks, I would have regretted it. Everything had happened so fast. My hasty decision would have been my ruin. The Lord would have taken her from me. They have leverage over me already, but they always want more. Thank you for seeing to her safety. Despite herself, Lauren relaxed in the merchant's embrace. Why did she feel so safe? She knew Damaris's evil, knew her love of others' pain, her desire for control. Yet after a moment, Lauren recognized the truth. This was not the embrace of a friend. It was the comfort of a parent. It was something Lauren had no memory of. Jordell had given her only a pale shadow of it, more akin to a battlefield commander than to a father. Lauren was always expected to look after Annis, after Jem, to console them when the world was cruel, to see to their safety. Now, for just a moment, a part of her mind could pretend that Damaris's embrace promised the same. Reassurance, security, protection. Do not forget what happened at Wellmont, whispered Damaris. Then she pulled away, and Lauren's wits returned. It was the dream. It made her see things, think things that would never happen in the waking world. This was another lie, another trick. Damaris stepped back until she stood by the woman in the chair. The woman's head had hung, but now she lifted it. Lauren studied her. Sharp and severe features, thin eyebrows, and regal lips, but she had been beaten terribly, and one eye was almost swollen shut. Far worse than that, her clothes were soaked in blood. Lauren knew it came from 1,000 torturous cuts, the sort that Damaris liked to give her victims as she pried information from them. The woman tried to speak, but a bubbling cough came out instead. She hacked for a moment and tried again, her voice like steel. Never again will June sit the Dortian throne. Damaris drew a dagger and cut the woman's throat. The dagger had been, Auntie's. Lauren took a step back, horrified. Then she heard a noise behind her and turned. The man in black had gone, but someone else stood there. Cal, the Grand Chancellor, was resplendent in his red cloak, which was free from any of the sewer's grime. Behind him were many mystics, all of them armed and armored. Lauren almost melted in relief. Damaris is here, she said. We can capture her. Cal did not answer. He raised his sword and leaped to attack her. She barely scrambled out of the way in time. At the last moment she fell and struck the wall, but then she fell through it. Lauren looked up in shock. What had seemed a small alcove was actually a side tunnel entrance. It led off into utter darkness, but in the main tunnel were Cal and his bloodthirsty mystics. Lauren ran as fast as she could, away from Damaris, away from Cal and his mystics who howled for her blood. But more red-cloaked warriors appeared in the sewers ahead. Again Lauren had to turn down a side tunnel. She was hopelessly lost. Where was the city? Where was escape? She had no idea. She could only keep running. A figure leaped out of the darkness ahead and Lauren recoiled, but it was no mystic, or at least not a real one. It was Naya. Lauren turned to flee again, but Naya snatched her arm. Quickly, we must escape, she cried. The mystics were now close behind. Lauren hesitated just a moment too long, and Naya's grip was strong. Soon they flew side by side. They came to a junction. Bent great, cried Naya, pointing. Lauren saw it, twisted and bent as though it had been struck by something heavy. Left, said Naya, and turned to follow her own direction. The cries of the mystics were still close, but now at least they were out of sight. Lauren almost stopped following Naya, but then the woman spoke again. Bronze plate. Right. She pointed again, and Lauren saw a bronze plate set in the ceiling. It had drainage holes, but beyond that she could not guess at its purpose. Naya turned right, and soon they had reached a heavy iron door. Help me get it open, she said. She seized the door and grunted as she heaved at it. Once again, Lauren lost control of her own body, and she moved to help. Together they heaved the iron door open. Its hinges groaned. Oh, hey, Dredd. Sorry I didn't see you arrive. Yay, night shift. Megan and I have pulled lots of night shifts in our day. Not a euphemism. Sweet fresh air rushed in to greet them. They darted through the doorway, and Lauren found herself on a low wooden dock built on the river's edge. Looking up, she could see they were in the city again. They had made it back to Danfon, but Lauren had wanted to escape the city. This is the wrong way, she said. It is the only way, said Naya. Come, or they will catch you. Lauren glanced back the way they had come. Many mystics rounded the corner. Battle cries poured from their lips as they chased her. With no other choice, Lauren turned to follow Naya. The woman climbed the riverbank and ran towards a small, nondescript shop nearby. She flung open the door and ran inside, with Lauren only a pace behind her. She was in the king's palace. Confusion struck her like a hammer blow, and for a moment she froze in her tracks. The halls and mighty pillars were familiar from the last dream. Turning, she saw the shop door behind her. It was set in the wall, and beyond it was the river. It was like a portal to another world, and her mind could not reconcile the difference. Hey, what's up, Clooney man? They nearly killed us, said Chet. Lauren whirled. When had Chet appeared there? He was within arm's reach. His limbs shook and his eyes darted everywhere, mad with fear. They were so close, said Chet. Even his words quivered. If any of us had made a misstep, if I had fallen. We are safe, said Lauren. They did not catch us. How long, said Chet. How long can we keep running? How long before I stumble in the chase? Lauren opened her mouth, but no words came out. She only shook her head. You cannot follow me anymore, whispered Chet. But you have followed me, cried Lauren in frustration, and I know you cannot do it anymore. It is killing you, Chet. I can see it, and I know you can as well. I only wish you did not feel the need to try. Unthinking, she stepped forwards and tried to embrace him, but he screamed and pushed her away. Lauren recoiled, cursing herself as Chet fled weeping. Lauren went after him, crying for him to wait, that she was sorry, but he kept running until he had led her to the passageway, the one she knew well, the one where her dreams always led her. Ahead was the dining hall. Chet fled through it. The way beyond was clear, and an open gate led to the city. Almost Lauren followed him. Then she heard cries behind her and turned. The mystics were there. They had found her again, and their swords hungered for her blood. She had to lead them away, had to keep them from Chet's trail. If she followed him, he would die. But if she went into the secret passageway, she would die. Gregor would see to that. Lauren threw open the small iron door and ducked inside the serving room. She seized the cupboard and heaved. It fell to the ground with a crash, scattering broken dishes everywhere. Beyond was the dark passageway, and she ate a maidstone so that she could see. There was a ladder, and at the top was the second hall. Soon she came to the tapestry and moved it aside. It was the apartment, the same as last time. She had half hoped the dream would play a trick on her again, that she would find herself somewhere else entirely. But it was the same. In the far wall was the door leading to the balcony, and before it stood Gregor, his eyes fixed on her, and she could not move as terror filled her body. The elves told you. Naya's voice floated from nowhere. Lauren was alone as Gregor stepped forwards, drawing his sword. The dream released her. Lauren started awake in her bed and sat up. For half a moment she forgot where she was, and fear coursed through her as she imagined herself in the Danfon Palace. But her wits soon returned. She was in the manor of the merchant Yushan, and Gregor was far away. Annis lay within arm's reach, but the girl did not stir. Slowly, Lauren's breathing returned to normal. She hung her head, resting it in her hands. The dreams were more vivid, more detailed, and yet they still brought less terror each time. That was good. Whether or not the dreams were meant to help her, she could do without the dread they always left behind. Mayhap soon they would leave none at all. But though the fear soon passed, it left her anxious and jumpy. She needed to move, to work out the sudden tension in her limbs. So she rose and dressed herself, wearing her regular, simple garments and not the new clothes from the tailor. She did not bother to pull on her boots. The door opened silently, and she slipped out into the common room. Hey, what's up, Open Door Riding? Good to see you. Hey, Lauren! Greetings. Greetings, traveler. Everybody want to say hi to my wife?
Say hi to my wife. Okay. He is going to get through some serious stuff because we've got to get it to the advanced readers tonight.
That's right.
So if you're an advanced reader, hey.
Hey, what's up, Josh?
You get Yerrin. Hey,
Yay.
hey. Kristen, I'm counting on you. To pull up.
Wait a minute.
What? You're staying on track, right?
You did the book standings?
Yep.
Why isn't it checked off as done?
Because I can't do anything now that I've done something else and I forgot.
I want you to do ads before you do that.
You mean customer service emails?
Customer service emails and at least ads, maybe social media as well, but that
I've already started the cycle.
I know, but
I will change that.
That cycle takes a long time, so I want you to do the ads. Okay? Love you. Alrighty. Lurky lurk. We got a whole bunch of people lurking today. Where was I? To her surprise, she found Shiyun there. The mystic sat in a chair by the door that led to the rest of the manor. Lauren paused for a moment, and the two of them stared at each other. After a moment, Shiyun raised an eyebrow. Can you not sleep? I did, but something woke me, said Lauren. What are you doing? Sitting watch, said Shiyun. Uzo and I have done so since we came here. Lauren cocked her head as she went to one of the room's armchairs and sank into it. Do you suspect Yushan might betray us? I do not, but one can never be too careful. Call it an old habit. Technically, we were still on campaign after all. Yeah, there was another Meg. Well, it was just the same Meg. Again. Lauren sighed. You were right, and I thank you for it. It is only one more detail I should have thought of. She sighed and looked away, picking at her trouser leg with her fingernails. Lauren felt shame rise in her breast, and she, too, turned away. She deserved better than her. The whole party did. Too often Lauren forgot that she was only a girl. The next day, or she supposed later this day, for it was the small hours of the morning. I go tomorrow. You go tomorrow? You go to uni tomorrow? Ooh, exciting. Lauren would play at being a legend, a master thief of great renown, yet she could not even remember to do simple things like setting a watch. I'm sorry you were assigned to me, Shion, she said softly. I know you would rather not have been. I'm sure you and Uzo must be frustrated by me. I should have caught Damaris long ago. A smarter woman would have. I should never have followed her to Uwamba. Sometimes, that is, I do my best, but sometimes I feel as though I am just stumbling from one mess to another and making each one worse as I do. Shion's lips pressed tight. She turned back to Lauren, studying her in the dim light of the room's lamp. Then it seemed to Lauren like she came to a decision, resolving something in her own thoughts. Oh, that's awesome, Dredd. Good job. May I speak to you openly, Nightblade? Of course, said Lauren. I am your commander in name only. You are not, said Shion sharply, so sharply that Lauren jumped a bit. You are who I was assigned to follow, and the same is true for Uzo. Yet all the long while we have ridden together, you have whined and complained and moaned to us. You speak too openly and listen too eagerly. Lauren straightened somewhat in her armchair. You do not want me to listen to you? I understand your situation, at least somewhat, said Shion. You are young. Few are given a command at your age, even in the Mystics, where we recruit some fine soldiers of your years. You are nervous that you will make a mistake, and before you rode with Mystics, you rode alone, or with a small group of friends, and you treat them as friends. You speak to them openly, sharing everything. Of course, said Lauren, feeling a little defensive now. They are my friends. But I am not, said Shion flatly. Do not misunderstand me. I think you are a fine woman and honorable. I do not tell you all this only for my own sake and Uzo's, but for everyone you may lead in the future. Sky above, act like a commander for once. Let those who serve you serve you. We do not need to hear the smallest details of every thought that crosses your mind. Some information can be helpful, but too much debate gets tiresome. Uzo and I are not your friends. We are here with one purpose, to carry out your orders. That is a lot of a soldier, and that is why we joined the Mystics. I did not join the Mystics, said Lauren. Stop, said Shion. You did not join the Mystics, but you accepted your assignment from the High King. That grants you privileges, but it also comes with responsibilities. I swear on the darkness below that I will pull my hair out if you seek reassurance from me one more time. That is not my duty. It is your duty to reassure us, or rather to reassure Uzo if he should need it. I require little for myself. Lauren found herself on her feet, fists shaking by her sides. How do you think I can promise him that all will be well? I have little faith in myself, much less our mission. Shion, too, stood, matching Lauren's glare with one of equal fury. Never say that again, she hissed. Not to any soldier who follows by your side. And if you do want my advice, which you should not, then never say it to the children either. If you believe in some elf tale where you are all friends on a grand adventure, I assure you that they do not. They see you as their leader, even if you do not act like one. Lauren almost argued. She wanted to, but her mind flashed back to her dream. She saw Damaris standing before her. She felt the merchant's embrace and the peace it had brought her. Reassurance, safety, comfort, things she had not felt for so long, not since Jordell had died. Shion was studying her, and now the woman tilted her head with satisfaction. Yes, Nightblade. Her voice was no longer angry, but quiet, and mayhap even a little sad. That is your place. I take no more pleasure in it than you do, I am sure, but that is the way of it all the same. Why is work having you juggle plates? It seems like it would be much more productive to have you do, what you do for your job. Like, isn't that more helpful to the company? Or I just don't understand why they'd have you juggling plates. Almost Lauren apologized, but then she thought better of it and nodded instead. You are right. Because of course Shion was right. Lauren rarely stopped to consider her own actions. That was partly because there was little time, but, too, she did not always like what she saw. She had left the Birchwood with dreams of becoming a great thief, a woman who could bring fear to kings and succor to the oppressed. Succor? Yet sometimes she still acted like a young girl, one who longed for the kindness and love of a mother and father who had never shown her either. You are right, she said again, slowly. I will do better, and I thank you and Uzo for your patience with me. I could hardly have asked for better soldiers to serve in my first command. All of you but Naya, of course. Some of the tension seemed to flow out of Shion, and she nodded slowly. Now that is the sort of thing a commander might say. And as for Naya, I hope that sow has felt all the torments of the darkness below. Lauren nodded, passing a hand over her eyes. I should return to sleep. Do not stay up all night. Make sure you wake Uzo to replace you. Shion resumed her seat. I will. Sleep well, Nightblade. Lauren returned to her room and lay down, but she could not find sleep. Shion's words echoed in her mind. She dreaded the thought of becoming a hard-bitten commander like Cal. But then he did seem the sort of leader whose soldiers would follow into battle. Lauren pictured herself in the role and wanted to laugh. Anna still slept, her mouth open slightly. Lauren studied her. Did the girl see Lauren as a commander, the way Shun said? It seemed ridiculous. Yet the children had followed her into dangers more deadly than most soldiers faced on a battlefield. But then again, they had done so while Lauren acted like herself, and not the war commander Shun seemed to want. She sighed, pinching her chin. Her thoughts spun around each other and seemed determined not to sort themselves out. One more worry, one more crushing weight atop all the others, threatening to snap her in two. She could not sleep, at least not yet, so she sat up in bed and thought about what she would say the next day. Words came slowly, and she fumbled over them. Eventually she rose and began to pace. The motion helped her, and she began to form some semblance of her proper speech. She only hoped that the plan would go smoothly, and she would in fact be able to deliver it. Moon's light peeked through a gap in the curtains. Lauren went to the window and leaned against it, pulling the cloth aside to look out. The red roofs in Danfon were silver in the night, accented in red by torches set in the walls of the buildings. Ever since she could remember, she had dreamed of becoming a thief of legend, something from campfire stories. Tomorrow might be the most significant single step she had yet taken on that road. It frightened her as she knew it should, but far more than that, it excited her, if she was being honest. She often cuffed or chastised Jem when he made too much of the stories that surrounded her. The tales were embellished, made to sound like extravagant adventures, when in truth she had struggled just to survive. But now she meant to pit herself against a false king before the eyes of an entire city, indeed an entire kingdom. "What under the sky has my life become?" she whispered. And who was the Nightblade? A thief in the night, gallivanting across Underrealm with her band of merry companions, or an agent of the High King and a commander of mystics? She blinked, and her lids were slow to rise. Weariness had come at last. She lay down in the bed once more and drew the covers over herself. At last her head settled comfortably into her pillow, and sleep claimed her quickly. Chapter 17. The morning dawned bright and fair, the air as warm as one could expect in winter. Lauren woke the moment Annis began to stir. When dressing, she almost reached for her normal clothes, the white shirt, green vest, and brown trousers she had worn ever since she left the Birchwood, but her hand paused on the garments. Today was not a day for simple clothes. Today she would don the new clothes Annis had bought for her. Carefully she untied the string that held the brown cloth package together. New boots were wrapped around the rest of the clothes, not made by the tailor, but procured by him from a nearby cord. I just realized I don't know how to pronounce a word that I used in my own book.
Cordwainer.
No.
Cordwainer.
No. Come on now. Give me a break.
Cordwainer.
Oh, just like it's spelled.
Cordwainer.
New boots were wrapped around the rest of the clothes, not made by the tailor, but procured by him from a nearby cordwainer to go with the outfit. Lauren did not think they were all that different from her old boots, though certainly they were less worn and had a few more buttons running up the calf. This is a reading stream, Bodegazilla. The new trousers were a bit tighter than she was used to, but they still let her move about with ease. The shirt buttoned twice inside and out and had more buttons at the wrist. The sleeves hung somewhat loose, and they fluttered when she moved her arms. Over the shirt was a long waistcoat with many pockets on both the inside and outside. Lauren thought it looked somewhat ridiculous, but the green velvet trim did catch the eye. When she had finished dressing, she turned to find Annis staring at her. Lauren had no idea how long the girl had been watching, but now she smiled with satisfaction. "And the cloak," she said. "Put that on." "Why?" said Lauren. "It is warm in here." Annis rolled her eyes. "Oh, come now, Lauren, let me see it. I picked these clothes after all." Lauren sighed and went to the wall, fetching her cloak and putting it on. When she turned back to Annis, the girl squealed and clapped her hands. "It is perfect. Every stitch of it. That merchant is worth twice what he charges. If we survive all of this, I shall have to send him a mighty gift of gold." All right, Bodegazilla, good to see you. Thanks for dropping by. Lauren looked down at herself. "Annis, I think I look ridiculous." "Of course you think so," said Annis, sniffing. "You have never had good taste when it comes to the finer things in life. Do not worry how you think you look, for I assure you that you are wrong. Are the clothes comfortable?" She had not thought about it. Lauren crouched, then gave a jump, then twisted all around. "Actually, yes. Very comfortable indeed. Is this silk?" Annis rolled her eyes again. "Honestly," she whispered before speaking in a normal tone of voice, No, it is not. Do not trouble yourself over the fabrics. We have more important things to worry about today. I'm picturing Annis as the costume maker from The Incredibles. No capes. Do not trouble yourself over the fabrics. We have more important things to worry about today. Oh boy. Once Annis had donned her own new garments, she and Lauren stepped out into the common room. The moment they stepped into view, everyone in the room froze. Lauren stopped as well, pausing on the threshold. Chet and the Mystics were looking at her, their eyes wide. Carrie was there too, and she had her head cocked as if Lauren were a stranger she did not recognize. No capes! Even Weil paused and eating his breakfast, his eyes traveling up and down her new garments. Jem's mouth hung open. Sky above, breathed the boy. You look like the Nightblade now, and no mistake. Lauren ducked her gaze, fidgeting with one of the cuffs of her shirt. I think you are an idiot, she muttered. Besides, I am not the only one in new clothing. Jem looked down at his own little suit. Somehow he had rumpled it already, but its fine cut was still eye-catching. I like it, he said simply, but it is nowhere near as impressive as yours. Chet stepped up before her, smiling, but Lauren could see the sadness and doubt in his gaze. For a moment she thought of her dream, but she forced that thought away. It suits you. Thank you, said Lauren, but we should be off. They all left the manor, making for the square where Wojin would deliver his speech. It was somewhat late in the morning, and the streets were busy. Wojin's address was scheduled for midday. They had intended to give themselves some time to prepare, but Lauren suddenly worried that the crowds might make them late. She touched Carrie's arm briefly, drawing the girl's attention. Is there a faster route? Carrie glanced at her. I can take us down some side streets if you wish. Please, said Lauren. I would rather not be late. Carrie smiled, and her gaze darted down to Lauren's outfit. As they ducked off the main thoroughfare down an alley, she looked at Lauren again. Your outfit truly does look wonderful. Lauren tried to suppress the burning in her cheeks. Not you, too. The girl only chuckled, a light sound that played musically on the morning air. Do not look so flustered. I told you when I met you that you were not quite what I expected from the stories I had heard, but now you look much closer to the mark. Lauren chose not to answer that, and instead only urged them on to greater speed. Soon they reached the place where Lauren would climb down from the rooftops. There they left Carrie, who would guide them in their escape. Lauren and the others pressed on, crossing the last few streets that took them to the square. A large crowd had already gathered. Some were there to trade and made their way among the merchant stalls that lined two sides of the square, but most had clearly come for Wojin's speech, for they stood expectantly, looking up at the manner from which he would address them. Lauren saw more than a few of them frowning and muttering to each other. She wondered if they were agents Weil had placed in the crowd or merely dissatisfied residents of the city. She hoped it was the latter. Up we go, said Jem. He bounded up the pile of timbers, which was unchanged from the day before. Lauren followed quickly, as did Chet. She and Uzo remained on the ground, there to support Lauren if she should need it. If all went well and Lauren escaped on the rooftops, they would vanish into the crowd and rejoin the party at Yashan's manor. Annis and Weil had remained there, for they would be little help today. Atop the roof, Jem bounced on the balls of his feet. When Lauren and Chet reached the top, he turned to them with a grin. I'm glad to be here, he said. Today is the day the Nightblade turns from a campfire story into a true legend. Be silent, Jem, said Lauren, and get down. She followed her own directions, lying on the rooftop so that she was nearly out of sight of the square below. For a moment she worried that she might be getting her knees and elbows dirty, but she quickly shook the thought away. Darkness take her if she would become someone who was always worried about her appearance. I'm worried, said Chet. He frowned down at the crowd. There are many guards down there. The moment they see you, they will try to find a way up. It will not take them long. Then I will be quick, said Lauren. By the time they reach the building, we will no longer be here. Of course, he said, forcing a quick smile. Lauren returned it, hoping hers looked more genuine. Suddenly, the crowd below them quieted. It left the air feeling empty, yet also charged with power. Lauren turned. Spam bot. Across the square, the balcony door opened. For a moment, she was uncomfortably reminded of her dream of the balcony where she always found Gregor. But then figures stepped through the doorway, and she shook off the thought. First came 4 guards. They wore armor and carried swords, but Lauren noted that they did not have bows. Then Wojin stepped into view. His robes were red trimmed with yellow, the colors of Dorsey. Upon his head was a thin circlet of gold set with many rubies. He was thinner than she had thought he would be, and his chin came down in a severe point. The point was not lessened by his thin beard, which was combed into an even sharper angle. He wore no weapon as the High King often had, not even an ornamental one. Apparently his guards were enough of a show of force for him. Just behind Wojin came a younger man. Lauren guessed that he was Prince Shun, Wojin's son. He wore robes like his father's, but a little less ornate. His head was bowed, and he kept his eyes averted from the crowd, almost as if he was ashamed to be there. Lauren wondered at that for a moment, but then all her attention was taken by the next figure stepping through the door. Damaris of the family Yerrin emerged into the sunlight. Gone were the kindness and concern Lauren had seen in her dream. Damaris strode with purpose, her head held high and haughty. She was imperious, commanding. Lauren did not doubt that many in the crowd ignored Wojin to study her. Some had to wonder who she was and what had earned her the right to stand at their king's side. A plan began to form in Lauren's mind. She watched the balcony door a moment longer, but Gregor did not appear there. She smiled to herself. Wojin paid no attention to Damaris. He stepped to the balcony's railing and raised his hands. The crowd, which had begun to buzz below them, quickly fell silent. Wojin looked solemnly down at them all, no trace of a smile touching his features as he gradually lowered his hands. "My people," Wojin proclaimed. His voice was powerful. Lauren had to give him that. She thought she could almost feel it in the tiles beneath her hands. The words hung in the air for a moment, and the last mutterings of the crowd faded to silence. "My people," he said again, "I give you my blessings, just as the sky has given us this beautiful day. But my heart is no less heavy. Day and night I mourn the loss of my dear nephew. No parent should have to bury their child, and though June was not my son, I feel his loss no less keenly." Jem snickered aloud. Lauren shot him a glance, and he shrugged. "Oh, come, Lauren, the man is a pompous fool." "Silence," she whispered. Wojin leaned forward, his hands gripping the balcony's railing, and his brows drew together in a frown. "But with that sense of loss comes a sense of duty. My nephew's death must not go unavenged. For the so-called High King Enelin there can be no forgiveness. No amends or reparations can return what we have lost. The debt can only be repaid with blood." He paused for a moment as if he expected the crowd to roar in approval. They did not, and Lauren thought she saw Wojin swallow. "That is why I have joined Dalmun," he went on. His voice rose as though he was shouting to be heard, but no one else had made a sound. "Enelin's tyranny has had its day. For the last time she has interfered with our sovereignty and that of the other kingdoms. No longer will we let her meddle in our affairs, keeping us from reclaiming our birthright. Dorsey should command all the southern lands that Selvin now calls their own. We did once, and we will again. Are any of us surprised that Enelin would intervene on behalf of the kingdom she once hailed from? Underrealm is a strong nation of proud laws, but Enelin has corrupted those laws. She calls us rebels as she calls the kingdom of Dalmun. But I say we rebels uphold the true ideals of Underrealm." The time had come. Lauren could feel it. She leapt to her feet and threw back her hood. "And do those ideals include kinslaying?" The air fell deadly quiet. Wojin gaped at her, stunned to inaction. Every head in the square turned to look, but Lauren kept her gaze on Damaris. The merchant was as surprised as Wojin, but where the king stood staring at her in wonder, Damaris wore a look of open hatred. If her eyes had been longbows, Lauren would have been pierced a dozen times in the space of a heartbeat. Lauren smiled briefly at Damaris, hoping the merchant could see it from such a great distance, but then she dropped her gaze to the crowd below. For a moment she froze. They were all staring at her, many of them as dumbfounded as their king, but all of them clearly expecting her to say something. Panic struck, and her mouth worked without producing any sound. "Say something," she shouted in her own mind. "Wojin is a usurper," she cried. They were not the first words she had planned the night before, but they seemed to do the trick. She could see a ripple move through the crowd. It was as though her words were traveling through the people like a wave. Some of them cast dark looks at Wojin where he stood on the balcony. "An usurper, a murderer, and a would-be kinslayer," said Lauren. Now that she had managed to speak, the words began to come more easily, and she remembered her speech. "Yes, I say would-be, for Wojin was not even powerful enough to bring his plans to fruition. He may have overthrown King June by force, and he sits in the palace now, but he is no king. King June is alive, and he will soon return." The crowd gasped. Some of them began to mill about, glancing around. Glancing around, Lauren could see some figures fighting to push their way through the press. Guards of Wojin's, no doubt, trying to reach the base of the building upon which Lauren stood. For a moment, she had almost forgotten that she would need to escape. Liar, cried Wojin, capturing the attention of the crowd again. This girl tells you falsehoods. Oh, said Lauren. She reached into one of the many pockets of her new vest and drew forth June's ring of office. Its ruby glinted in the sun as she held it up. Then where did I get this? The crowd's murmur swelled as they beheld the ring. Wojin's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Lauren smiled. Then a woman jumped up on the base of the statue in the square's center. She threw a fist in the air and cried out, Long live King June! Down with the usurper! Down with the usurper! Yelled someone else. Lauren could not see who it was, but soon a few others took up the call. Wiles' agents, she thought. Bless that smuggler. Wojin rallied himself at last. My people, he cried, do not listen to this woman. Who is she? A foreigner and a liar. June is dead, murdered by assassins of the false High King. For all we know, this girl is the one who killed him. That is how she got the ring. Damaris's face went a shade paler, and Lauren laughed out loud in what felt like a moment of madness. The laugh seemed to shock Wojin, for he fell silent again. Lauren murder June? She'd never willingly taken a life. Wojin could not know that, but Damaris would. Lauren's laughter died, and she shook her head. I am no murderer, Wojin, not like you. I am a simple woman of Selvin. The crowd muttered, and she lowered her gaze to address them once more. Yes, my kingdom has no great love for yours, but the petty differences of kings are as nothing now. Before I am a woman of Selvin, I am first a citizen of Underrealm, a servant of the High King. I did not kill June, I spoke with him only last night, and I will not rest until the High King's justice finds this false king, him and the woman by his side who holds his string. He calls me a foreign meddler? What of her? Ask yourselves, people of Danfon, why would a merchant of the family Yerrin support a man who killed his own nephew in a mad quest for power? Wojin was muttering to his guards and making sharp gestures towards Lauren, but they had no bows with which to shoot her. Lauren looked at Damaris again. The merchant's face had gone dark, and there was an evil glint in her eyes. She looked right back at Lauren, her expression holding a grim promise. I will find you, Nightblade, and I will end you. The crowd was chanting now. Long live King June, down with the usurper. All hail the Nightblade. That caught Lauren's attention. She had not proclaimed herself to be the Nightblade at all. Weil must have taken liberties when he gave orders to his agents. She almost opened her mouth to speak again, but she felt a sharp tug on her pant leg and glanced down. Jem was lying flat so that the crowd could not see him, but every so often he had poked his head over the roof's edge to peer at the throng. The guards are close, said Jem. It is time we left. Lauren looked and saw he was right. The guards had neared the bottom of the building where they stood. They would soon find a way up, and she did not want Uzo and Shun to be drawn into a fight as they tried to protect her. One last time, she turned to the crowd. Ready yourselves for King Jun's return, she cried. It will be soon, and he will be wroth, for Underrealm and the High King. She threw a fist into the air, and many in the square cried out as they did the same. Then Lauren turned with a whirl of her cloak and scampered away across the rooftop. Jem and Chet slithered away from the roof's edge, then rose to follow her. That was the single most glorious thing I have ever seen, said Jem with excitement, and considering the leagues we have ridden together, that is saying a great deal. Oh, be silent, Jem, said Lauren sharply, but she could not wipe the grin from her own face, even when she saw that Chet kept his gaze low, his eyes troubled. She ignored him. Mayhap she did indeed trip from one disaster into the next, but now, for the first time in a long time, it felt like she had finally gotten one thing right. Chapter 17, done! That is halfway through the book on the chapter count, although we're considerably farther than halfway on the word count. Chapter 18. They dared not return to Yushan's manor straight away in case someone spotted them. Therefore they spent... Yes, chapter done, yay. Some time wandering in back alleys and deserted streets, constantly searching to make sure no one had followed them. By the time they finally reached the manor, the sun was low in the sky. In the basement, they reported the day's events to King June. Their news was met with celebration. Senlin's eyes shone as Jem told them of Lauren's speech. Lauren had not thought it necessary to give them details, but Jem insisted, and June wore a fierce smile. Yushan herself actually clapped her hands when they were done, and immediately she beckoned for servants to bring them food, as well as some of her finest wines. A good day's work, said Joe. The bodyguard pulled at his close-trimmed beard, and though his face was characteristically dour, there was an uncommon energy in the movement. How many would you say spoke in support, said Prince Senlin. Very many, said Jem quickly, before Lauren could answer. He bounded up to the prince and bowed low. I half thought the crowd would rise up on the spot and storm Wojin's manor. Mayhap they did after we left. They did not, said Uzo. It took us a while to withdraw from the press. Wojin departed almost immediately, and the crowd dispersed soon after. Jem looked crestfallen, but Senlin smiled and put a hand on his shoulder. That is no matter, said the prince. The important thing is that they know we are alive. You have performed a great service, not only to us but also to the High King herself. This time Jem not only beamed, but blushed as well. I suppose it is not the first time we have done so, but I thank you nonetheless, your excellency. The servant arrived with a tray holding 3 bottles of wine. Yushan quickly unstopped one and poured a glass, which Lauren accepted gratefully, but she paused as she caught King June's eye. He studied her with pursed lips and a furrowed brow. Today was a good start, he said slowly. Yes, a good start, but only the start. We will not retake the kingdom on the strength of one victory. The room went quiet. Lauren's mood dampened at once as she recognized the truth in his words. But after he had let the gravity of it settle for a moment, June took another glass from Yushan and filled it himself. He raised it slightly in toast to Lauren. Then again, mayhap even a small victory deserves some acknowledgement. Joe grunted a laugh at that, and Lauren's smile returned. She touched her glass to June's, and the two of them drank deep. June turned to speak with Senlin in a low voice, and Lauren studied them for a moment. She still had little love for the Dortian king and the wars he had brought to Selvin, but she had to admit, if only to herself, that he was not so simple a man as she had imagined him to be, back when she had been younger and had seen so little of the world. What would I have thought a year ago in the Birchwood to see myself drinking with a king, she thought. Indeed, he is not even the first king I have shared wine with. They all made merry in Yushan's basement quarters for a short time, but Lauren soon ordered her party to return to their quarters. Basement. Too many quarters. June had been right on one count. They still had much to do, and the sooner they began, the better. They spent the day resting and retired early. Lauren spent a dreamless night in sleep and woke before the sun, rising to break her fast in the common room with the others. But before she had finished eating, an urgent knock came at the door, and a messenger summoned her to June's side. Annis had risen, and together the two of them made their way to the basement. There they found June ready to receive them. Indeed, he and Senlin scarcely seemed to have moved from where they had been the night before. If they had not been wearing different clothing, Lauren might have thought they had slept in their chairs. For a moment she was struck by the ludicrousness of the king and his son in their little court in this basement. Beside them, Yushan looked like a court scribe ready to take notes of the king's proclamations, but such thoughts fled her mind as June looked up at her gravely. "We have received a message relayed through many ears," he said. "Someone in the city wishes to meet with me." Lauren balked and shot a quick glance at Joe. The bodyguard's face was grave. Beside Lauren, Anna spoke carefully. "That does not seem wise, your grace." "Of course his grace will not take the risk," said Joe. Senlin glanced at the bodyguard. "Yet neither can we allow this opportunity to pass us by." Lauren held up a hand. "Pardon me, your grace, but who wishes to meet with you?" June shifted in his seat. "Her name is Duras of the family Fey. She is a senator, and she is my kin, though somewhat distant." Annis arched an eyebrow. "And Wojan has allowed her to remain free? Why would he do that, unless she is loyal to him?" "I have thought much the same thing," said June, "yet Wojan could hardly have had time to thoroughly test the loyalty of every senator. Most likely he hopes that they will accept his new position because it would be too difficult to resist him. The Senate's purpose is to provide a check on the power of the king in domestic matters, but that power has not been strongly tested in many years, and Dorsey has not seen anything like Wojan's treachery in centuries. If he is willing to assassinate me to take the throne, would he hesitate to kill a senator? He hopes they will obey him out of fear of being replaced or worse. Yet that fear may bind them to our side instead," said Joe. "Hey, what's up, Cass Stabby?" Great name. Your name definitely makes me laugh. They have their own state's armies, but they would not risk using them against Wojan, unless mayhap they think they can win. "It is not the most honorable course, but it is prudent." "And this woman Duras," said Lauren, "is she the sort of woman who would act with such prudence?" "We do not know for certain," said June. "She does not normally reside within the capital, and we have had few reasons to meet each other. She only happened to be here on state business when Wojan took control. Normally she serves in the southeastern reaches alongside that state's other senator, Shen, my cousin, and a good man, but he fell in the Battle of Wellmont." June abruptly stopped talking, and his eyes flashed as he looked at Lauren. He must have wondered whether it was wise to mention that battle in her presence. But Lauren's thoughts went elsewhere, to something in her dream she had scarcely remembered until June's words brought it to the fore. "Do not forget what happened at Wellmont." Did Damaris's words refer to the death of this senator? But how could they? How could Lauren forget Shen's death when she had never heard of it before this moment? Her thoughts had begun to wander, and she reined them in. It seems clear what we must do," she said. "A meeting must be arranged with Duras, though his grace cannot attend it." "I will go," said Senlin. "I know enough, I think, to act on my father's behalf." "Absolutely not," said June. "I fear for your life more than mine. If anything were to happen to me, you would be the last of our line, except Wojan himself, and that does not bear thinking about." "It should be me, of course," said Lauren. She spread her hands. "Is that not why you have summoned me here?" June lifted his chin for a moment, studying her. Lauren had the feeling that he had not expected her bluntness. "It is," he said at last. "I would consider it a great service." "I've already pledged myself to helping you reclaim the throne," said Lauren. "This seems but one small step on that road." Excuse me. Annis pursed her lips. It could be dangerous, Lauren. If it is a trap, this Duras may well spring it on you instead. She will think she can pry the king's location from you through torture. Then I will not let her catch me, said Lauren. If there is one skill I possess, it is the ability to escape the traps my enemies set for me. She meant it as a jest, but Annis's frown only deepened. That is what the tales say about you. Take care that you do not believe too strongly in your own myth. Lauren nodded gravely. I will not. It was a poor jest, for I know only too well how dangerous our enemies are. She turned back to June. What should I seek to gain from this meeting, Your Grace? That depends very much on what Duras plans to offer, said June. For now, meet with her and hear what she has to say. As I have mentioned, I know little of her directly. I hope she means to pledge her loyalty and offer help, but we must be cautious. She may seek to turn me over to Wojin, thereby earning his favor. Annis perked up. Oh, happy first day of autumn. I forgot. Or I didn't know, actually. Annis perked up. I should go with you, she said. If Duras wishes to negotiate or to plan, you will need me. Lauren's mouth twisted. I would prefer to have you by my side, certainly, yet it seems too dangerous. If Duras is working with Wojin, she is also working with your mother. If Duras should bring word of your presence back to her, that would be disastrous. And she fought back a thought. Unless Damaris already knows you are here, as she said in my dream. No, you do not see the future. Auntie was proof enough of that. Anna shook her head at Lauren's words. I need to be there. Forgive me, Lauren, but you are simply not qualified. When it comes to a fight or to gathering information, of course you are the right choice, but not when it comes to negotiation. Hey, what's up, Miak? That seems to make you an even more valuable asset, said Prince Senlin, frowning. Mayhap the Nightblade is right, and you should remain here. Frowning, Annis thought for a moment. Then she brightened. We will take extra precautions. We will arrange the meeting at the safest location we can manage. At the beginning, someone will meet with Duras alone, while others of our party scour the surrounding area, searching for any sign of an ambush. If they find nothing, they will alert Lauren, and Lauren will fetch me to handle the details. They all paused. Even Lauren thought that idea had some merit. Very well, said June. He turned to Yushen. Have you any idea where such a meeting might be arranged? Yushan thought for a moment. I may know a place, she said at last. It is a warehouse owned by the family Jinso. Their trade has fallen in recent months. And the warehouse has seen little use. There will be no one around to snoop about and expose us. We should tell her to meet us somewhere else, said Annis quickly. Mayhap a tavern, not too close to the warehouse, but not across the city either. We will send an agent to meet her there and then lead her to the warehouse. That way Duras will have no chance to set a trap if that is indeed her intention. June paused for a moment, looking at Joe. The bodyguard nodded slowly before turning to his liege. It seems wise to me, Your Grace. Very well, said June. He clapped his hands to settle the matter, and Yushan scuttled off to send the message wending its way back to Duras. When the merchant had gone, June turned back to Lauren. Now let us determine what your goals in the meeting should be. I thought I was to hear Duras out, said Lauren. That certainly, said June. The best we can hope for is that Duras wishes to help me reclaim the throne. 39 Celsius, my God. That's pretty hot. Those emojis. If that is the case, the most important thing we need is the support of as many senators as we can muster. Agreed, said Annis, and I will need their full-fledged support once I have taken the palace, said June. It will do me no good to reclaim the throne if I do not have the Senate ready to act on my behalf. Forgive me, Your Grace, said Lauren, but that seems a weak method of persuasion. Right now, Wojin holds all the power. Would the nobility not be wiser to pledge their strength to him? June smiled. It was a grim expression, fell and cold, and Lauren had to hide a shiver. Not necessarily, he said, his voice tight. Anyone who takes the throne by force must first rally support, just as we are doing now. How do they gain that support? By promising rewards. And where do they get the rewards? Lauren frowned. After a moment's silence, Annis answered. They eliminate possible opponents, the girl said quietly. Then they divide the spoils of conquest up between those who supported them in their rebellion. Just so, said June. Until Wojin is removed from power, every senator who did not directly aid him is at risk. Duras will likely know this, Nightblade, but if she does not, you must remind her. I will, Your Grace, said Lauren. Then go. Sky keep you safe. How awesome, Dread. Lauren bowed, and then she and Annis returned to their quarters upstairs. The others were just rising, all but Jem, who had to be roused from bed as usual. But as the rest of them woke and broke their fast, Lauren sat in her own armchair in the corner and stared into the low fire burning on the hearth, her thoughts far away. And the next chapter is too long to complete in time. So, done chapter 18. And I'm going to end for the morning. I have lunch and then a phone call after that, but we'll get back to it today. Definitely, TM. Oh, thanks for coming by, everybody. We blazed through what, 3 chapters? Not bad. I think we can get this. I think we can get this done today. Yee! Very excited. Very excited. Much happy. Sorry, Miak. Next time. All right, everybody. That's it for me for this morning. Thanks for coming by. See you on the next one. Bye.